Hello there, and welcome to Fable TLC Cut Content, the series that tries to show you as much content that goes unused relating to Fable to help give you some idea of how different the game could have been. If you were wondering why the Heroes Guild looks so different, it's because this is where I try to spawn as much of the unused content as I can and then compile that level into a mod for others who are interested in trying them out in-game. So if that is something that interests you, I highly recommend checking the description of this video so you can find a link to the mod known as the Content Museum. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at cut quest items that didn't make it into the game. If you aren't sure about what I mean when I say cut quest items, think of items such as the hexagon key or blue mushrooms. These are objects which are required in order to progress the quest and are never used for any other purpose. I should probably clarify that trophies do not qualify as a quest item. Though they are obtained after completing a quest, their intended purpose is completely different and acts more as a reward for completing certain quests. Another example of this would be the Lookout Point statue, which isn't necessarily an item that the player can acquire, but rather an object, activator, or trigger that helps progress the quest in some way. So for this example, when the statue is pointing at a certain direction, then the quest progresses to a stage where you can temporarily receive a prize. Now that you know what I consider to be a quest item, let's look at what objects we have to work with. Since I already mentioned it, we might as well start off with the Lookout Point statue. And if you were wondering, yes, the statue's rewards are in fact a part of a quest. The quest is called Statue Master in the game files. What you are currently looking at is an object that's labelled in the game files as Lookout Point Statue. However, lookout is spelt incorrectly, with a space between look and out. I am not sure if this was the original spelling for the area, or if the person who named the entry for it made an error when they made this. It has a unique mesh to the one we see in the retail game, however the statue itself does not go completely unused. Two of them can be found in Greatwood Entrance, where the chest appears as the statue points towards this direction. It's possible that the name could be referring to the fact that it's a part of the Lookout Point statue quest. However, I have seen these screenshots from the Project Ego era of Fable that would suggest that this statue was intended to be either in the middle of this area or in the corner on the way to Bowerstone. Since I couldn't find any footage of someone looking at the statue, it is unclear if it was intended to move around like the one used in the final game.
At the orchard farm, who has asked for a hero's help in protecting his property. And Simon has decided to be, what are you going to be, Simon? Good or evil?
I'm going to be good at it.
He's going to be good.
Another quest-related object that goes unused is the Wasp Nest Generator. If you go near one, then a hornet will spawn, and the nest will keep going until it's been destroyed. Two versions of this can be found. One is listed as Creature Generator Wasp Nest, while the other is just an object called Hornet Nest. My guess is that the Creature Generator is meant to be used to spawn wasps, while the Hornet Nest is just meant to be a static object. As you might know, most enemies spawn from a Creature Generator. This generator lists all the creature family types that can appear within a certain radius, and is determined by your character's experience. The more experience you earn, the stronger your opponents tend to be. Wasp nest generators act in the same way, however they appear to be a visual representation of these creature generators. This is most likely because it was used for a quest. There is evidence of this quest in certain builds of the game, but most of the information regarding it was scrapped. All we really know is that someone would ask you to go around Greatwood and destroy each of these hornet nests. It's possible that this was meant to be an earlier version of the Wasp Queen quest, however none of the evidence supports a Wasp Queen being involved. Based off the footage of Fable from the games convention in 2003, these generators would only spawn one wasp at a time. However, since this is the only evidence we have of it in action, it is unclear if they would get stronger based off your character's experience, like other creature generators. For some reason, if you used ranged attacks to destroy the nest, then it is completely destroyed. Melee attacks have a unique model.
Certainly be evil in this quest, but there you go. And so Simon has chosen to protect the farmer, where he could have chosen to attack the farmer. So we'll just take you through the journey. So he has to take the journey through Greatwood. Now, firstly, a couple of things to say about the hero. This hero completely morphs to reflect how you're playing the game. If you're running along using a very heavy weapon, you'll notice that his arms will develop and develop more muscles. If you're using more magic, you'll notice that his eyes will become darker. And that means what we're trying to do, we're trying to get it so that gamers can not create their own naked men, but create their own heroes. And those heroes reflect what sort of player you are. Because that's the first thing about role-playing games. Why should you play someone else's hero? Why not play your own hero? So at the end of Fable, you can look at your character and say, this is what I'm like, and my character is different from your character. So he's just going to, I put some clothes on now. Do you notice the resemblance between Simon here and the main character? There is, because he can choose his own hairstyles, he can choose his own beards, he can choose when he cuts his hair. All of that technology, that morphing technology is built in. So if you've been playing it for a few hours, you'll notice your hero becomes more and more unique. Now, as we're going there, let me talk a little bit about the combat system. The combat system is based on really simple, easy to pick up, but really, really hard to totally master. You've got things called flourishes in there. Flourishes enable you to pull off special combat moves depending on how experienced your character is. You can combine physical combat, swordplay combat, with magical abilities. You can combine swordplay with range combat, any combination you like, so that halfway through the game your character may look like Cohen the Barbarian. He may have huge muscles, the ground may slightly shake as he moves around, but he'd be useless at stealth. Alternatively, you may have used lighter weapons, you may have used ranged weapons, and he'll look more like Bruce Lee. He'll have lots of muscles, won't be so strong, but he can be really stealthy, he can hide in shadows, he can evolve himself as you play the character. And that is all partially down to what you want, partially down to what the way you play the character. That's the first thing. The second thing, you notice in the top left-hand corner of the screen, it's just a little gameplay mechanic. There's something called a combat multiplier. And a combat multiplier, what it does is, every successful hit you make on an opponent, it goes up by 1. And that multiplies the experience you pick up off the ground.
I already have a unused weapon and unused NPC video which kind of goes over this, but I might as well put it here since it sort of counts towards being a cut quest item. These throwing bombs, which are given the name Blastboxes, were actually meant to be used for a quest known as the Madbomber. The quest involved a blacksmith in Knothole Glade asking you for help to catch a Madbomber. the Madbomber would go around placing his Blastboxes in different buildings and the hero would have to defuse them. More evidence of this can be found in the retail game, as the creature entry for this character was recycled for the Executioner and Flick of the arena. It is unclear if the model for this character was meant to be the same, as the developers will sometimes recycle characters that went unused to suit a totally different need in the game due to time constraints. Like in the case of the trophy dealer, for example, which co-creator Dean Carter said to me had ended up being reworked into the archaeologist. However, he also wanted to clarify that his memories of the events of Fable's development are a little fuzzy, so he admits that there's a possibility he could be wrong about the subject. The quest doesn't reference any use of the other throwing bombs, like slow time or lightning, so we can only assume that the Blastbox was the only one involved in this quest. You are able to throw all of them, which has a similar animation to the inflame bombs that Whisper uses in the retail game. Each of the other bombs use the same sounds and animations, however the lightning bomb uses a unique set of particle effects. I am guessing that throwing bombs were a very early concept that got scrapped, and they just somehow tried to find a way of making Blastboxes work with the quest. A user by the name of Albion Secrets managed to recreate the intro and outro cutscenes that were involved in this quest by using information he found in other builds of the game. Unfortunately, there is no audio for the dialogue shown, but everything else is there. If you are interested in seeing more cutscenes that he managed to stitch together and information regarding quests found in other builds of the game, I recommend joining his Project Seasons Discord server, which is linked in the description. Based off these next items, it is possible that the Hobbe Cave quest was meant to be a little different, the main focus being this Nymph gate. As far as I am aware, this is not used in any way and doesn't match the atmosphere of the Hobbe Cave in the final game. It also appears to have a hexagon-shaped keyhole, similar to the hexagon key that the player receives from the granny at the start of the quest in the retail game. It's possible that the Hobbe Cave quest and a quest involving nymphs were two totally separate things, and that the developers ended up combining the two to help save time. What adds to the mystery is a series of nymph wings, which appear to have been involved in some type of nymph hunter quest, since one of the nymph wings is in fact a trophy. On top of this, there is a building in the game files called Nymph Cave that has a completely different atmosphere to anything I have seen involving Hobbe Cave. However, this could just be a coincidence, since no evidence of such a quest being worked on is present in any build of the game. Another interesting one is the Hobbe Tooth Bag. two versions of this can be found in the game files. There is the Hobbe Tooth Bag that uses the exact same model as the hero's money bag item. Then there is the Hobbe Tooth Bag that fits better with the atmosphere of Hobbe Cave. However, the latter can't be picked up as it's a static object in the final game. Picking up the Hobbe Tooth Bag simply adds it into your inventory with no description. It has no further menu options, which most objects that can't even be used still manage to have. Unfortunately, there is no evidence pertaining to this, but my theory is that the Hobbe killing contest was originally a contest about killing Hobbes and collecting their teeth, and that the Hobbe Tooth Bag would act as an accumulator for these teeth. But I could be wrong. This is backed up by the fact that a trophy involving a Hobbe's skull can be found in the game files, along with the Hobbe Tooth trophy that we receive in the final game, which could be a little nod by the developers. This one's a fairly confusing one, but I will try my best to make it as concise as possible. There are a whole bunch of maps in the game files, most of which refer to the graveyard and how to reach it. However, this is the only map which has the specific name of Grave Map, and shares a skull icon similar to what can be found on coffins in Bargate Prison. Something you may also noticed is that some of these objects refuse to stay on top of tables, so I'm doing my best to get a view of them in game. Anyways, this map also shares a similar model to the maps that can be found on the Archaeologist's backpack, however they do not possess the seal of a skull like these items do. The reason it gets confusing is because this isn't the only map either. There's 4 other maps which can be found in the game files. There is the Ship of the Drowned map, or the map of the Lost Bay, and is a part of the retail game. Then there is 2 other maps which share the same model, however one of them is named Map Peace and the other one is named Secret Map. The last map is an object named the Archaeologist's Map, which is very large for some reason and appears to be hand-drawn. Most of these maps have text insinuating that their intended purpose was to either show you how to get to the graveyard or to help you explore the graveyard, which leads me to assume that you were meant to visit the archaeologist at some point to receive a map that would lead you to the graveyard, rather than him just ambiguously stating, "Yes, I will show you how to reach Bargate Prison" in the Rescue the Archaeologist quest. Next up is the strange old boot. It appears to be a retextured villager boot that was meant to have more of a purpose. There's not really much else to go off of regarding this. I can only assume that it might have been possible for you to mess up the Fisherman's Creek quest, and rather than getting a golden fish, you would get this boot. Either that, or the game had a feature in place where junk items were a possible reward for fishing and digging spots. I can't really see any other specific purpose for creating a boot that looks like it is meant to be rotten after years of decay, since according to my knowledge, this boot isn't used anywhere else in the game. It's not possible to pick up the boot either, however, it will stay in your inventory if you use a chest to receive it. Now we have a really long quest to cover, but for the sake of this video I will try my best to make it brief. These items were intended for 2 quests known as Travelling Beggar and Travelling Bully, which were meant to be a sort of extension to the Beggar and Child quest in Lookout Point, from when you first leave the Heroes Guild. As the name of the quests suggest, you would visit one of them in every town in mainland Albion, based on who you helped last time. So if you helped the bully to start off with, you will always encounter the bully's quests, and if you helped the beggar, then you would always encounter the beggar's quests. I wasn't kidding either when I said every town in Albion. There are markers for this quest in Bowerstone South, Bowerstone North, Oakvale, and even some for both Knothole Glade and Witchwood. Their quests were meant to be the moral antithesis of each other, so the beggar's quest would award you good alignment points, and the bully's quests would award you evil alignment points. These encounters involved a variety of interesting situations, such as helping the drunk beggar pick up litter around Bowstone North, or helping the bully pick pockets of innocent victims, helping the beggar find a new home for the night, or help the bully maintain his territory amongst other bullies in Bowstone South. There was even a quest involving a big ass chicken which you had to lure to Knothole Glade to distract a guard. Ultimately though, most aspects of these quests were scrapped in the retail game. Some of the text files and map markers for the quests can be found. Even the quests section still lists Travelling Beggar and Travelling Bully, despite them never being called. However, attempting to trigger the quests in finalalbion.qst does nothing. This is because a lot of information regarding context behind the intentions of these quests, such as scripts and lost text files, were found in earlier builds of the game, which means there is currently no way to restore these quests back to the way they were originally intended. The Fable Anniversary official game guide includes an excerpt that talks about this same quest, which was apparently designed by an American employee of the studio. Based on this quote, the big ass chicken was actually meant to be called Massive Cock, because, you know, cock is another name for a male chicken, or just a male bird in general, which, as it further points out, is technically an accurate description and not rude at all. This is a pie that is named Stolen Pie in the game files, but is also named Beggar's Special Pie once added to your inventory. This was meant to be an item you could steal from the beggar and give to the bully. It won't let you pick it up normally, which would make sense when you consider its intended purpose. For some reason, the pie also uses a red currant pie icon, despite using the blueberry pie model. I am not sure which one of these is meant to be the mistake, since there is also a red pie model that goes completely unused in the game files, and the blueberry pie model could have just been a placeholder. Next up is these pieces of letter, which I believe goes completely unused in the retail game. In Bowstone North, the beggar would get harassed by the guards and told to leave the town. This forces the beggar to politely ask you to help him pick up the litter that's scattered around town, since he was drinking too much ale the night before. He would further go on to say that he only has 90 seconds before the guards kick him out, which then starts the countdown for you to help him. Whether you decide to help him or not, his dialogue suggests he makes his way to Knothole Glade regardless. Finally, we have the beggar's hat. There are a couple of moments in these two quests where the hat is involved, such as the beggar asking for donations, and when the bully asks you to steal his hat. There is also early Fable footage that would suggest the beggar and bully would be different in Lookout Point 2, along with a series of animations that go completely unused for the beggar.
Into the game. Peter, what are we going to see now?
Well, it's just a little trivial thing. Simon's been walking around the world. He's just discovered that there's this kid just shouting at this beggar, and he's just being really rude to this beggar, and he's saying, I love to pick on this beggar. And I just wanted to show that you can learn things off him. Because he's been swearing at this beggar, Simon's just learned the word to say the word shit. And so he chose to learn that. Yeah. He's going to have to learn that. So now he can just swear at anybody he likes in the world. He can walk around and swear.
So let's point that out. You walk around, you see somebody swearing at his children or something like that, and
you learn that.
Call them really bad names. Like,
yes.
I mean, you can say fuck on German TV. That's really,
you can.
That's a nice thing because nobody understands it.
Right, okay.
You can say fuck or mother or whatever.
Yes.
So you can really, by seeing it, you can learn it.
You can learn it, and also it's got a little bit of expression on it. So.
The hero's old house deed is next on our list of quest items, and sort of adds more questions than it answers. A quest that is cut from the game, called Hero's Old Home, doesn't really do anything in the retail game, since your house is for sale anyways, just like any other town. However, earlier builds of the game suggest that it was a cut quest that would trigger as soon as you enter Oakvale, and that it involved seeing the ghost of your father who would haunt the memorial garden. Not much else is really known about the quest. However, when you consider the possibility of buying real estate and the idea that there's a real estate agent in the game files, it must have been a very early quest to have been scrapped. I mean, you can't even find a model of your father as a ghost. If anything, there's just Scarlet Robe. But an interesting theory is that maybe this quest was meant to be an earlier version of the Fisherman Ghost quest, where you have to help him give money to his wife that he buried near the sea. But other than that, there's not really much else to go off of. Regarding the involvement of your father's ghost, since we are on the topic of deeds and real estate, I might as well cover this deed to Bowerstone's clothing shop, which supports the idea that maybe you were meant to talk to an estate agent before you could buy certain buildings. But what is more interesting about this one is that it uses the name Secret Grove Key in the game files. This is extremely interesting because Secret Grove isn't just a cut level for Fable, but rather a cut level dating all the way back to the Wish World era. According to this design document that Dean Carter released recently, you can start to see now where his mention of assets being reused to work with other elements of the game really start to come into play. Another item which shares a similar model to these deeds is Granny's Special Pie. Some text in earlier builds of the game refer to a woman named Mother Rightwell, but it is unclear if that is supposed to be the Granny or if this pie would be involved in a completely different quest. Something to also note about these items which use this scroll object is that the template model for quest cards actually use the same model as this, which is named Quest Scroll in the game files. This shows us that some of these objects could have been the name of a quest, rather than just being a placeholder for an object, since the original quest card object was meant to be a scroll and not a card. This is further backed up by these Project Ego screenshots which show an earlier version of the Heroes Guild and the Guildmaster, who has these same scrolls present on his table. There are a whole bunch of necklaces in the game files, two of which you may already be aware of, the Farmer's Ghost Necklace and Lady Grey's Stolen Necklace. However, there are two other necklaces that go completely unused in the game files. These are the Easy Pickens item and Sister's Locket. Easy Pickens refers to another cut quest, which there is evidence for in certain builds of the game. The text and scripts associated with it suggest that you would be approached by a hooded apprentice who would offer you 50 gold pieces for each necklace you stole. The victims of this theft would be 3 individual traders in Oakville's tavern. The traders would get drunk and walk out of the tavern, which would give you time to pickpocket the jewellery before they head home. The Sister's Locket, on the other hand, isn't referenced anywhere else in the game. A user by the name of Game Genie pointed out that there is also a lever that was meant for the Hook Coast Lighthouse. It is unclear what its intended purpose was. Perhaps it was something to do with a quest like Dragon Boss Fight, or a way to go to the Necropolis. No one really knows, since it can't be found near the lighthouse anymore in the retail game, but it's an interesting find nonetheless. What is weird is that the model is named Hanging Tree Lever, despite fitting the atmosphere of Hook Coast better. And finally, we have the Haunted House items, a plethora of objects which were intended for one big quest. This quest would have probably taken place at the Grey House, since that's the only reference of a haunted house. The 5 items involved with this quest can be found in any build of the game. However, text associated with this quest can only be found in earlier builds of the game. The text for this quest suggests that it may have been a precursor to the Lady Grey's Dead Sister quest. When you go near the haunted house, you would hear mysterious voices warning you of its disturbing nature. Entering the haunted house for the first time would then ambush you with undead. After defeating the undead, a ghost that haunts the house would approach you and request that you recover these objects, which were intended to be scattered all around Albion. You would have to collect them individually, piece them back together, and then return to the Grey House. These items are a doll, the Star and Moon slippers, a toy horse, a star for a mobile that sits on a cart, and the figurine music box. Unfortunately, what happens as a reward for this quest is unclear. I believe that finally covers everything I could find regarding items and objects that could have been involved with unused quests, or an earlier version of already existing quests. Hopefully you enjoyed your time watching this video. If you want to see more of my cut content videos, then a playlist can be found in the video description.